Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are watching this video. Spring is here in the UK. As you can see from the beginning of the video, it's raining, but I have had the best solar performance day during the month of April than I've had since the system was installed. So let's talk about the solar PV stats here in the UK for the month of April 2019. Right, so as usual, to bring everyone up to speed, I am running a 9 kilowatt solar array here in the West Midlands in the UK with a 6 kilowatt inverter, a Tesla Powerwall 2, and a couple of my energy products being the Eddy to heat hot water with surplus energy, and the Zappi to charge my electric vehicle, which is a Tesla Model S. And I also have a little Renault Twizy that I also charge from some of the solar surplus as well, just plugging it in when there's lots of sun. So let's start off with looking at kind of how we were hoping and expecting the system to perform. So I always have two numbers. One of those numbers is the estimate I had from the installer when the system was kind of quoted for and set up, and then the number that I estimate. They tend to be quite close, and historical performance so far shows the system tends to perform somewhere in between those two numbers. So the installer estimated in the month of April the system should generate 980 kilowatt hours. My estimation was 970 kilowatt hours. So we're hoping that obviously the system performs above 970, but maybe 975, something like that would kind of be in keeping with some of the historical numbers that we've had in the past. So let's log into the dashboard and see how things are working. Okay, so here we are, and we fell short for April. So 910.45 kilowatt hours electricity generated. So still a really good number, but about 60 kilowatts less than we were hoping for. So I think that's because April's been kind of an odd month. It kind of started off a bit bad, kind of as we'd expect, April showers and all that. Then it started to kind of climb up in the second and third weeks, and then the weather's kind of went bad again, and I think that just kind of hindered the system's performance, but still pretty good overall. So I was able to self-consume 93% of that electricity, so 842.48 kilowatt hours of electricity used. But they also exported quite a lot, 67.97 kilowatt hours of electricity was exported back to the grid. I just couldn't find somewhere to put it. The power was full, the hot water was heated, and the car was at the charging kind of capacity that I needed it to be. So went back into the grid to, I guess, power my neighbours and surrounding houses. In terms of general consumption, I consumed, I had to import, I should say, 0.2 megawatt hours of electricity. There's a couple of reasons for this that you'll kind of see when we go through the graph. This month I've had to do a couple of longer trips than I normally do in the car, which means in the evening or early morning even, I've charged the car up on the Economy 4 tariff to kind of maximise the mileage that I can do. And also I've had a bit of a problem with the Zappi, which I think is fixed now, where it was draining my Powerwall instead of pulling from the grid all the time to charge the car, which then meant, I had to pull from the grid because the battery had sucked into the car when it should have been pulling from the grid during the off-peak season. So not ideal. To give some context for, I guess, the usage and everything, because this kind of fits into the feed-in tariff kind of portion of things. So for April, for what I generated, I'll get £35.78 for the generation, and I will get £23.85 for kind of the value that could have been exported. And I saved myself in theory, around £115 and 59 pence of electricity that I didn't have to buy or import from the grid, in addition, because it was all generated by solar. That import number, the free electricity number, is based on the standard rate tariff numbers, not off-peak, because it's difficult. I can't really calculate when I've used electricity or not in terms of off-peak or on-peak. So let's quickly jump through and see kind of how things stacked up for the month. So as mentioned, as we move into April, weather isn't really that great. Still kind of charging up the Powerwall a little bit off the grid or from the grid during the off-peak, but things tend to be relatively self-sustaining, so a bit of surplus that I can't fully use. That's meaning I'm not having to kind of fully charge the battery every night, just kind of every other night or so in the start of April. And the weather's kind of cloudy, so there's some good sun here and there, but overcast, so it's not a very nice curve to the solar system. Obviously not the solar system, the solar array. We can see here the 4th is when I'm first needing to do some charging to top up the car. And you can see here we're getting above, obviously it's over 7 kilowatts because the house tends to run about 300 watts during the evening, so hence 7.3 kilowatts are being pulled. And you can see here it randomly is kind of pulling down to around 4 kilowatts, where it starts to drain the battery. So it didn't fully drain the battery in this instance. There's still enough to keep going, but not to get us all the way through the day. So around 1900 hours we have to start pulling from the grid. This obviously means that then when it comes to off-peak, we're charging up the battery at 4 kilowatts an hour. We discussed this before. The Powerwall should be able to pull from the grid at 5 kilowatts because the inverter enables it to do a constant kind of 5 charge and discharge, but it never seems to charge at more than 4 kilowatts in my experience. Then you have a pretty good solar day after that, so the battery is in really good shape. There's no need for us to charge in the evening. Just get these little spikes every now and then. It's just kind of common that we see month over month. So a good couple of days where we don't have to pull anything from the grid. Again, then on the 8th I've got a trip on this day. So I plug the car in to charge because I need some more charge in the car. Again, pulling at about 7.5 kilowatts for a couple of hours. Then for some unknown reason decides don't want all that from the grid. The battery's got some stuff in it, I will steal it from there. That obviously means when the off-peak ends, the battery is dead, so I have to kind of pull from the grid until the sun comes up and starts to do something. But the 8th wasn't a very good solar day, so as a result of that, I had to kind of pull from the grid most of that day. Puts me in the same situation for the next day. So I've done a long trip, so I needed to charge some of the car up and then the Powerwall. So this is where you can see kind of the bigger spike here on the morning of the 9th. Again, some reasonable solar generation, but not enough to charge the Powerwall up fully to get me all the way through the night. So again, we have to charge the Powerwall up off peak, but then the day is actually pretty good. So the next day, I don't know why there's this little spike here because it shouldn't have really needed it, but it did. But we start to get in from the 11th, the good weather has turned up in the UK, and as you can see, it's a reasonable curve, but some overcast weather, but we can't fully consume all the electricity, so we export some. Moving to the 12th, good day, plenty of surplus, I couldn't utilise it all. 13th, much more patchy, but a few situations where couldn't utilise everything, so exported around 4 kilowatts. Again, another day, I just can't fully utilise everything, so 4 kilowatts is exported. So remember, I'm little bits going into the car, little bits, obviously it's always fully charging the Powerwall, and then I have this balance between the car gets charged first, then the hot water, depending on how much surplus electricity is available. I need more than 1.4 kilowatt hours of surplus to go into the car. Anything less than that, it will just heat the water until that 1.4 or above is happening. 15th is a good day. I've got another trip coming up on the 16th, so plug the car in the evening to fully charge. Again, this strange shenanigans with pulling from the Powerwall, so I had to pull it from the grid again in the morning. Then the next couple of days start to get good again, so some good solar generation, Powerwall's getting fully charged, and I'm not really needing to touch the grid for quite a few days. I think there's over a week where there's hardly anything happening on the grid. And look at this, massive patches of surplus that I just don't know what to do with it, so it just goes back into the grid. 21st here, this was my best solar day ever, so 48.26 kilowatt hours of generation and nearly 8 kilowatts went back to the grid. So far that's my best day on record since the system was installed. And then things start to tail off now as we get towards the end of the month. The weather starts to get a bit more patchy, so it's cloudier and overcast. Still not having to pull from the grid though, but managing to get through and charge the power up enough, dribble a little bit into the car, and the hot water seems to be doing okay. This little blip here, this was an oddity with the Powerwall on the 26th. For some reason, even though there was 40% charge in the battery at this time of the morning, it decided it's off peak, so I will use power from the grid to run the house instead of the battery, which is really odd because you can see the forecast for that same day was really good. I had nearly 7 kilowatts of surplus, so there's no reason why I needed to pull from the grid. I don't know why it did it. I tried to get hold of Tesla to see if there was an oddity or something, but still had no response from them. And other people I know who have a Powerwall didn't have the same blip as me on that day, so I'm assuming it was unique to me as opposed to a particular firmware issue or something, just a glitch in the matrix, as they would say. And as to this issue that I have with the Zappi kind of taking the power, I can't remember if I mentioned this already. I think I've worked it out to be the fact that the CT clamp that I have for the battery live feed was connected the wrong way round. So when it was installed, the installer fitted it wrong way round. So I've opened that up, flipped it round, because the arrow, if it's on the live, should always face into the consuming unit. It was facing out, and that meant that it was going to get some skewed results, which is why it was sucking from the battery when it really shouldn't have, seeing it as kind of like a surplus. And so far, with a couple of tests I've done, which has only been at the end of April, it seems to be working okay. So we'll see how things perform in May. But we just get through to the end of this month, and we see again some pretty good performance here and there. And it's really only at the beginning of the month that I'm having to pull from the grid. And you can see again on the 30th this other little blip of weird performance from the Powerwall. So that's twice in April that it decided, no, I don't want to use the battery I have stored, I'd like to pull from the grid because it makes much more sense. So that's where we are. So things that I think in general for me are looking good. If we look at kind of the year kind of information, you can clearly see here how much better April has been than any month I've had so far. Obviously since the end of August the system was installed. So I continue to be really happy with how everything's working. If we have a quick look at some stats from the other devices that we have here to give it more information. If we look at the hot water first, so the amount of surplus energy gone in via the eddy, 108 kilowatt hours of electricity went in to heating hot water. So that's all surplus solar, so that's really, really good. If we look at the Zappi, so for car charging, obviously this doesn't include my the Twizy because I don't really track the costs of charging that. But a total of 292.75 kilowatt hours went into charging my Tesla Model S during the month of April. 61% of that was all surplus solar, so 178.92 kilowatt hours was all from solar. And then, as mentioned earlier, I had some longer drives to do, so I had to charge from the grid during the off-peak with the Octopus Go tariff. And that's 39% electricity came from there, so that was 113.83 kilowatt hours. I think, well, at least I do, when I look at some of those numbers, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of electricity. So what does that kind of really mean? So, because I'm obviously interested in electric vehicles and the cost of running and owning them, I thought it'd be handy if I could give some context here. So previous to my Tesla Model S, I had a BMW 428, and in general I would spend around £150 per month on average. April was a non-average month with me doing more mileage, so if I had that car now, I definitely would have spent more of the £150. I don't know exactly how much, but it would have been more because I'd done some longer trips. As just mentioned, 61% of my electricity came from solar, so I didn't have to pay to put the electricity into the car. And so the actual mileage that I did in April only cost me £5.70 of electricity I had to buy from the grid to run my car for the month. If I didn't have solar, it would have cost me £15 in terms of how much electricity costs, because I'm charging all the time on the Go tariff off peak. So even if you haven't got solar, that's a significant saving over the cost of petrol. And we won't go into the discussion of, well, yes, Dale, but the car costs you a lot of money, because granted it did. And I know EVs do cost more than a combustion engine vehicle, but if this wasn't a Tesla and it was a second-hand Nissan Leaf or something which would be considerably cheaper, the argument would still be the same. The cost of motoring with an electric vehicle is a lot less, in my opinion, and the numbers help to stack that up. Talking of electricity, as mentioned, I know a few of you that watch the channel have moved to the Octopus Go tariff using my link. If you decide to do that, that's fantastic. We both get £50 credit to our account. But because so much of my electricity is coming during that off-peak time, because I'm either putting it into the Powerwall or I charge a car off-peak and then use that electricity later, my average cost per kilowatt is only 6.68 pence per kilowatt. So it's about half the price of the standard unit costing, maybe a little bit better than that. So I'm really happy with how that tariff is working out for me. And if we finish up the video looking at the Powerwall, so I was able to put in total 299 kilowatt hours of electricity into the Powerwall, and then out of that I was able to get 265 kilowatt hours. So that turns out to be about 89% efficiency, so very close to the 90% efficiency that Tesla say the device should perform at. So yeah, I'm really happy with how everything is working. I'm happy with kind of how I've got the system set up. So solar's generated, obviously it runs the house, which tends to be, if no washing or anything is happening during the day, is about 700 watts with all the computers on, etc. At night time it's about somewhere between 300 and 500. Once there's any surplus left after running the house, that goes to charging the Powerwall to 100%. Once that has been achieved, if the surplus is less than 1.4 kilowatt hours, that goes to heating the hot water. As soon as it goes over that, even by 0.1 kilowatt, it will then start charging my car if it's plugged in, until that reaches the 80% charge limit that I set. And if that kind of goes up or down during that period, it will kind of keep going back to heat the water until it's above 1.4. Once a car's fully charged, then all the surplus will go to heating the hot water. So I'm really happy with how it's working out. Concerned isn't the right word, but it's kind of nice and frustrating at the same time to have kind of put so much back into the grid that I couldn't use it. So maybe I will think about doing more mileage in the car, not worrying so much, but interested to see what May has to hold. It's been a crappy start to May. It's been raining the last couple of days, but I'm hopeful that we're going to see some really kick-ass weather and crack that 48 kilowatts maximum solar generation I've had so far. So thanks again for watching these videos. This video series seems to be relatively popular each month. I would be interested to hear how your solar system is performing in the comments. I think we're building quite a good community with people kind of sharing and commenting on these things. So put down your generation and the size of your array and your inverter. Also, if you've got a Powerwall 1 or Powerwall 2, I'd be really interested to know kind of what your performance efficiency is. Are you getting above 90%? Are you getting below 90? What's it look like? So we can start to understand a bit better how these things perform across the board. Thanks for watching this video. A thumbs up would be really appreciated. If you're interested in other geek type videos, please consider subscribing to Spectrum Geeks. Why not also follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And before you leave, why don't you check out one of these other videos that may be of interest. Thanks again for watching.